more than customary that I thank the GMOA and my friend Dr. Padenia for inviting me. In fact, my topic, as you see, sticks out like a sore thumb from what we have heard so far. I'm not going to talk about the qualities of a professional. I think you have heard much of that in the morning sessions. I am going to do something or share something with you which I thought, Dr. Padenia, was not relevant at this stage. But then I was told by many people, a lot of people are asking that they want to write their CVs. Now, when you say Sri Lanka is the best country to live in, I also agree with that, and we believe that. But why do people want to write CVs unless they are looking for jobs outside? Anyway, I'll put it in the correct perspective because I think it's important. Yeah. So I'm not going to have any formalities. I'm going to just go through some slides so that it will make it easy for you, since I don't see you, and I hope you see the slides. I hope this will help you at some point, and I have some evidence to say that it has helped some doctors, because I have been doing this, and I have been participating in the Good Interns program for about 10 years. In fact, every time I come, they give me a photograph. Take a photograph, and they might give it today also. So I have put them. When I came today, my wife asked me, so you will bring another photograph today also and come? I think I don't know, because we are doing it differently. Those days it was all live audience. We had people in front, so this one is slightly different. So I'll just share the slides with you very quickly. Now, we talk of curriculum, we take CV, this is a common word that everyone uses now. The word curriculum, I mean, just for you all to get the perspective and put it in the context, has Latin origins, like most of medical terms and legal terms, Mr. Navaratna, which means basically to run a course. And it used to be that in the Greek-Roman days, the chariots that they used, they were called curricles, because they had round wheels which took them from one place to another. So this is a hangover from that, and you use that word in this particular case, because curriculum vitae means life, is a short account of one's career and qualifications prepared by an applicant for a position. That's a simple, very, I might say even a narrow, but nevertheless, that is a crucial aspect of a curriculum vitae. Let me now take you to some other terms that you might come across, and when you apply for jobs, or when you look at advertisements outside, or when you apply for a job in a hospital. Not so much in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, you don't apply for jobs as such, but if you go abroad, you have to keep on applying for jobs. Even now, if you want to go abroad, you have to apply for jobs. And there you find these words, these terms. Sometimes they might say, send your curriculum vitae. Or they might say, send a resume. Or they might say send a portfolio, or send a CV with a portfolio. The word portfolio is somewhat familiar to doctors in Sri Lanka, because most of them, when they do postgraduate work, I think they have to develop their own portfolio. So that's quite familiar in terms of our guys also. Now, this is a word or two about each of these, so that you get the meaning of this. A CV is basically to get an interview for a job or any position. You send a CV to get an interview. It may not be an interview, they might select you on the strength of the CV itself, but usually a CV is to get an interview. A portfolio is something that you take to the interview. The process of putting a portfolio together will help you become a more successful at the interview, the relationship. Then in comparison to a CV, a portfolio consists of much more. The achievements, records, photographs, if you have any of what you have done, that will give you and the interviewer more insights to consider your work in real life. So that's the distribution of these terms and the meaning of these three terms. Resume is, on the other hand, curriculum vitae versus resume, or the two of them together. A resume is a one-page summary of your skills, experience and education, short. A curriculum vitae is a longer one, maybe 2-3 pages, because it should provide more information. The primary differences are the length, what is included, and what each is used for. Having got through that, I want to now quickly but they practically mean the same thing. I mean, in terms of the substance, it's practically the same thing in a different format. Now, what is CV for? A CV is quite simply an advertisement to promote yourself to an employer, often to receive an interview, not necessarily, but often to receive an interview. Therefore, writing a CV is a gentle form of marketing. The product to be marketed is yourself. You are marketing yourself. This is all that your employer will see to decide whether you are good enough to meet and to have a chat. That's the only means of communication that you will have. You might make a telephone call, but very often they will not listen to that. Therefore, your CV must be as good as you can make it without sounding pompous. There's a thin line. You should promote yourself, market yourself, but you shouldn't say I'm the best butler in Sri Lanka, which you are not. Obviously, you cannot. You might be, but even then, you don't go about saying that. So, without being pompous, you have to promote yourself in a gentle, persuasive way. That's the secret of saving a CV. Now, I'll give you some guidelines. The content of a CV. I'm running through this very quickly so that we are a little behind time, Anuruddha. So, the items that a CV should include. Obviously, details of education, undergraduate and graduate, any fellowships, licensing, certifications, etc., any publications. This would not apply to our interns right now, but as they grow in life, as they grow in their professional lives and careers, slowly, this will become important. Teaching and professional work experience, the awards you have received, and any professional associations you belong to. Those are the key elements that you have included in a CV. Then to tailor your CV, the mandatory information, which the must-have information, your personal details, your SLMC registration, as well as any relevant association memberships. Now, for CVs, particularly for jobs in UK and other developed countries, sometimes they give you templates. They give you, now in my own organization where I work, the WHO, we have a template and you are supposed to fill that, and that's standard. But there you have opportunities and room to include all that I mentioned here, but it's in a format which they can easily, machine sort of generated. If they tell you to use a template or they have a template, obviously you have to use that. But that will also have most of what you are doing here. The format is, now there's expansion of what I told you earlier. The biodata, your name, address, personal information, etc. Common sense thing, but nevertheless don't miss some of them. Education, include the highest exam you pass first and you go down. Professional qualifications, postgraduate, MBBS, going downwards. The other skills that is any special training and any related certificates and diplomas. Computer skills and language skills. Those are also very handy, very useful. Then of course you give your employment history, again in chronological order from what you are doing now going backwards. Current, going backwards. And any academic positions that you have. Continuing, you can mention your awards, publications, very important, any books that you have done, chapters you have done, professional memberships, and some of the interests. Now, interests, you have to be a little careful about it. I mean, don't say things like billiards, that would not pass muster very well. Something a little bit more sophisticated than that, and any other information that might be of value. So, use your judgment and use your common sense. And then you might ask me, how do I get started? Okay, if there is no template, how do I get started? If there is a template, of course, that will guide you. But if you are not having one, to begin with, best thing, I mean, if you are in the first time, you are trying to develop your CV the first time, these are some of the must do's or can do's. Put each of the headings on top of several sheets. Take lots of paper. If you have a computer, that makes it much easier. Then you fill in under the topics. Without writing your CV, first of all, just fill in the information. Then if you have a medical CV template, download it. If the employer sends you an application, of course you use that, and you need to send a covering letter in that case. If you have a template that you are using, use a covering letter. I'll give an example. This is not a true story, but almost true story. This is a student I knew in Peradeniya, and I developed this on the information that he had. It's not his life entirely, but most of it is true. I say John Perra, he was not John Perra, obviously, he was some other name, from Polonarovich, right? And this is his CV at the time he finished his A-levels, at the time he entered medical school. This, if you wrote his CV, this would be like that. A recent high school graduate, and as high school graduate means, that's the term they use there, with good education qualification, sense of responsibility, looking to secure a temporary position in a suitable institution or company to grow my career and develop my skills before entering medical school. So this is his CV at the time he graduated, that is from high school, after A-levels. And then you see the record, but it follows the same format I told you earlier. More or less the same things are all here. And then, of course, his work experience, volunteered at ADIC, this is also true. He had a first aid certificate from St. John's Ambulance. Then he gives his hobbies and interests, and he provided 2 non-related referees, one of whom happened to be myself. That's how I know this case history, right? So now he entered Peradeniya, this boy, and he did very well. You might recognize that I can't use details, but he did very well. Now I'll stay that for a while, and then I'll quickly go through some of the do's and don'ts with regard to CVs. Some of the do's and don'ts. Some of the most common inaccuracies that I have seen a lot of CVs of other people. When I was in WHO, we used to get hundreds of applications. So they are scheduled, and then we shortlist and look at them. Some of the common ones, sometimes employment dates are wrong. If you do this, that means you are careful. If you are careless, people will not take you very seriously. Length dates from to, and don't leave a blank year. If you have, say, until 2022 or 2021, and then you start the next one at 2023, there's a serious problem. You have to indicate that without a break. If you take a break, you have to write that down. Even if you are, in hospital, doesn't matter, just mention that. So don't have a break. Sometimes I find the job titles they are given are wrong. This other one I said, be careful about the gaps between employment. Then, of course, qualifications, and surprisingly, there are undeclared positions that people include in their CVs. Now, having said that, I'm going to summarize now. I'll come to Dr. John Perra later when I finish, but nevertheless, some useful do's and don'ts. These are some of the do's. Customization, write a customized CV for every job opening. This may seem like a waste of time, but it's anything but a waste. It's not a waste of time. List your career and education from most recent backwards, as I said. So you'll recall what I said when you go through this, the do's. Think carefully about your achievements and include the ones that are specifically relevant to your work, which you're applying for. Not everything. Include a very short section on your external interests. Sports, this shows you that you have a life outside your work. That you're a person who can balance. Some of the other do's, there are 2 simple principles. One is to keep it simple. Second is, if they didn't hear it, you didn't say it. Because if you want them to hear it and see it, you have to write it down. What you have written may seem obvious to you, but not to the employer. Go through it again, making it shorter, more readable, and more understandable. Make it crisp. So going once or twice, and also get someone else to look at it. Ask one of your friends to look at it, or someone that you can go to and ask to have a look at it, and to make it better. And format your CV so that it is aesthetically pleasing. Now you can do that very easily with all the computers and the programs you have. Make it so that if you have say 10 CVs on the table, not necessarily, but one would pick up the ones that look a little bit more attractive than others. Now that is not to say people will reject the others, but the aesthetic appeal is also important in this, how it looks. Then some of the don'ts, some general don'ts that I think it might be worthwhile for you to remember. Do not do some of the following. Do not. Do not include any unnecessary personal information. You don't have to say how many times you got married, how many times you lost your boyfriend or girlfriend. Those are not important. I'm giving extreme examples for you to understand that you have to maintain a sense of balance as to what you include with regard to personal. Include a photograph. Don't include a photograph. Don't include a photograph unless asked. Or if you are applying for a beauty contest, don't include a photograph, not for your type of life. Don't include your referees unless asked. Better if requested, you do that. Unless asked, unless it's specifically asked, don't include referees. Don't try to include humor or sarcasm. It can be irritating to the person who reads it. And don't make spelling mistakes, because that's a very clear sign of carelessness. People will take it seriously in serious. Now I got this from a CV. Not I got, somebody else got. Now this is a British person. Now you said British people speak good English, but I don't think they necessarily they don't speak good English and they don't spell properly. Now if you look at that, employment, the word is misspelled. Executive assistant misspelled. August is some of them are misspelled to lack of maybe knowledge. Some are careless. So they're really careless. You have no excuse for that way. Most of the computers have a spell check. You can easily go to that. This is little dated that way. So don't make sure there are no spelling mistakes. In fact, I got a CV of a consultant. Spelling, obviously carelessness. Some time ago, not recently, when I was in WHO, say 15 years ago, the word ophthalmology, he's an ophthalmologist, but he had left out the H. Obviously, he knew it, but that is, it shows that you are not meticulous about what you are writing and what you are doing. Not a fail mark, but not nice. You know what I mean? It brings you down in the eyes of the employer or the person who's going to interview you. Then some of the other don'ts are, unless asked for, don't mention what you are looking for. Don't do that. Don't write the job, etc. unless they ask you. Then what you are looking for is salary, things like that. Unless they ask you, don't do it before the interview. Don't include information to be viewed negatively. Failed exams, failed affair, I said that also. Divorces, reasons for leaving a job, don't include those. And don't give the interviewer a reason to discard at this stage. Your main point in writing a CV is to get to the interview. That's the first step. You should do whatever is necessary to get you to the interview. That he should be attracted by what he sees and what he reads. And don't include anything that might discriminate against you, such as date of birth, marital status, gender, disability. Normally now you don't write, ladies are not expected to write date of birth unless they go to the interview. In application you don't have. We also don't. We also should not. It's a uniform thing, because that's a discriminatory thing in some places now. They will decide once they meet you whether you are fit enough to do the job or not, and on the record they will be able to say what your sort of vintage is likely to be, but you don't have to include that unless they ask for it specifically. Unless they ask, don't do that. If they ask, please do that. And a few critical questions are, now who's applying? The correct answer isn't your name. The opening 50 words of your CV matter very much. These are the short blurb that you write. Write a short profile that sums up your work, history, skills, and your know-how. Avoid cliches. Don't use words like self-starter, team player, highly motivated. They are used everywhere. They are cliches now in writing CVs. Better avoid them. I'm saying purist things. Now, not that you are going to be disqualified if you write this, but preferably don't, because these people know that these are cliches and they don't take them very seriously. Is this CV unique? That's the other question you ask yourself before you send it. Before you send off your CV, read it alongside the job specs and ask yourself, have I made it easy for a very busy recruiter to call me for an interview or shortlist me? Ask that question. And if you don't get a very positive answer for yourself, try to see how you can make it more attractive to be taken. Then what are the achievements? This I mentioned earlier. Why am I reading this? Somebody is reading. this is not a question, but you want someone to ask while, this is not a question that you want someone to ask while holding your CV. See, I'm reading, I should not have to ask myself, why am I reading this CV? Because it must give me more attention to the first half page that I read than any other part. So the first part is very important, because all of us look at the first few sort of paragraphs, sentences and lines, and then we decide whether this is worth going further or not. Now I am coming back to my friend John Perra. He went to medical school, did very well, became Dr. John Perra, and he was interested in pediatrics. So you are here, I'm happy to nothing to do with, yeah, the boy from Peradenia. And then his CV looked like this, it expanded. What happened was, now this is an important point I am going to tell you. Keep record of what you do along the way, so that once you go, if you did something significant, note it down somewhere, because you might need to remember it at a future date. And then when you write the CV as a doctor, then you have everything at hand. Now this is the CV that he wrote. Now it's long, very, very impressive CV, very impressive. And then this guy went and did the MD long ago, don't think of who, long ago. Then he was seeking a placement overseas in pediatrics. And this was what he wrote, with all the achievements, etc. This is all on record, yeah. And now he's not there now. He went to Great Ormond for a while, and then Great Ormond is a famous pediatric hospital. No. So there for a while, and he's not there anymore. He just went for some training, and then. So that's how it goes. I'm sorry I had to rush through all this, but I hope it will be useful, although it is not the same thing that you heard earlier in the morning. But I hope at some point you lose it. But my summary would be, keep track of what you do, and when you need to do that, have some way of storing your information that you can use later. Okay. Thanks a lot, and all the very best to all of you. This is very strange to talk to 400 people out there without seeing a single face, but nevertheless, I wish you all the very best, and hope you will have very good CVs in the next 5 to 10 years that you can boast yourself. Thank you very much.